Mom, Dad, I just have to say, it breaks my heart watching you stress over dinner every night. This year, I don't want you doing the fridge stare down. Hot take. With the new Blue Apron, eating healthy is easy. They've got pre-made and one-pan meals with plenty of balanced nutrition. No subscription needed. You could be plating like a chef instead of negotiating with leftovers. Make it your healthy, tasty, and easy 2026 dinner resolution. Just saying.
Get 50% off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code LISTEN50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Welcome to No Question About That. This is the Midweek Pod. I'm Ed with Dominic today. How's it going, Dominic?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Ed. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah. Survived a storm here last night. It was massive amounts of rain. It was just biblical, like rivers flowing down the hills.
It's record temperatures in November in the UK. I think it's like 15, 16 degrees in early November, which is pretty crazy, yeah.
That is nice. Well, a bit like Manchester, here it starts raining about the 1st of October and stops sometime in June. Just dumps it down. Apparently there's climate change happening, but it's just not reached these parts yet. Right, there's some change at United, sort of. I don't know. We're going to preview United v Spurs at the weekend, test for United's form. Is everything still working or not after the draw at Forest last week? We'll talk a little bit about the new Inside Carrington podcast, interview with Jason Wilcox, who talked a little bit about how the operations work, what it is like being a football director at United, and how they see the world. I thought it was a reasonably, slightly boring, but it gave a bit of insight. And some of the other news, rumours about Rashford and Højlund, and Wayne Rooney versus Van Dijk spat, which I kind of enjoyed.
Yes, that was good.
Maybe we start there. Wayne Rooney, to be honest, he's doing a lot of punditry these days. I don't know whether is he still a manager? He's not a manager literally anywhere, but is he still looking for jobs? I don't know. He's had a tough time the last 2 gigs at Birmingham and Plymouth. But he suggested that Liverpool might not have... They needed their top players to step up and be leaders during their bad run of losing six games in 7. They have won a couple now.
Yeah, I think he seems to have really committed to this latest batch of punditry that he's doing.
Yeah.
Maybe in the knowledge that he isn't going to get any more jobs in management, and therefore he has to, fully go on the dark side, maybe to the media. But I always think that the criticism of him as a pundit is often quite harsh. He isn't the most eloquent of speakers, but he does make a lot of good points, and obviously knows a lot about the game. And look, his career to draw on it is absolutely phenomenal. So I think he actually held back in the spat with Van Dijk, on spat really, but in the contretemps, obviously maybe fearing that he would be memed or clipped up or embarrassed or whatever the latest sort of trend is with pundits online and on social media. Van Dijk probably got the better of him in that particular scuffle, unfortunately. But yeah, it's sad to see Liverpool return to form as well, isn't it? What a shame that run couldn't just go on and on like City's run at this time last year.
Yeah. Well, Slot moved things back to the way you put Szoboszlai back in midfield, and it's made them a bit more solid and functional as a team. Unfortunately, he worked out the problem reasonably quickly. He took him
putting the number 10 at right back didn't actually work.
Funny that.
A new number 10 who's not played in the Premier League in team didn't that work either. I'm enjoying the Florian Wirtz struggles because I know it won't last forever, and he's actually a really good player, but I'm going to dine out on it as long as I can.
Yeah, he was pretty good against Liverpool, I thought. He still hasn't got any numbers, but I thought that was probably his best game in a Liverpool shirt. Unfortunately, they played quite well as well. The Scousers. Slot, I suspect, is a pretty good manager because he turned things around quite quickly. The Rooney stuff, I thought he was a bit passive, sort of the live piece, and you're probably right. He probably didn't want to get into some kind of argument, and it felt like Van Dijk's point went his way because he was more forceful. But the point Rooney made about leadership I think generally when you're the champions and things are going wrong, particularly Van Dijk and Salah probably needed to step up a little bit. Salah in particular seems to, I don't know what's got into him, but he does not look like happy, jolly Mo Salah. Yeah, because he's kind of a character, right? He's got something about him, Mo Salah, and he seemed to, I don't know, he's gone into his shell a little bit. I'm always very reluctant to go down the body language isn't right path, because what does that even mean exactly? And in some cases, it's fairly loaded, isn't it, when people talk about it like that? But the general point about your top players have to be leaders when things are going wrong, I thought was fair. Van Dijk obviously didn't like the criticism that Scousers generally are a bit thin-skinned, I'd say.
Well, criticising a team who won the title last season, who then go 6 losses in 7, is completely fair. And you do look at the senior players in that time, and the two main ones, Van Dijk and Salah, were massively underperforming. I mean, they did against United. Van Dijk made an error for the first goal. Salah was pretty much anonymous in that game.
Yeah.
And they're the two big stars that Liverpool worked so hard to tie down on contract extensions last year. So you look to them to then bring in this new crop that Slot has sort of been gifted by the powers that be. But there's a lot of tension there. You can tell between the new boys, Isak and Bert. So obviously they're becoming men there and have been sort of tasked with eventually leading that attack. Salah has been the leader of that attack for almost a decade now, and he's probably feeling the strain of their poor form and of his own poor form. And Van Dijk is a tetchy character at the best of time, isn't he? Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he took umbrage with Rooney.
No, I think generally there's something in the water in Merseyside. They're all a bit thin-skinned. When they were booing Trent Alexander-Arnold in the Liverpool-Real Madrid game the other day, I just find this whole thing very weird. He won titles with them. He was there for more than a decade, and he decided he wanted to do something else. Is it because he left on a free? Is that why they're so angry? I don't know. It seems really, really, really odd. He hasn't gone to a rival. He didn't come to Manchester United, for example. That would have been reason to boo him. I think, I'd have liked it just for that. I mean, I don't think he's a very well-rounded player. I'm talented, but as a right back, there's too many holes there. But it's really odd, their reaction to it, I think. And they were singing Steven Gerrard's name, a player who twice tried to leave for Chelsea, by the way, and only didn't because some guys in balaclavas turned up at his house and threatened to remove his kneecaps.
That is the absolute irony, that they were singing Steve Gerrard. This guy wanted to leave probably more than Trent had. Yeah. Or at least push for it. And like I say, there are many complicated reasons why he didn't get that move. But one of the reasons wasn't because he didn't want it. He did want to move. Yeah, the Trent thing, the closest equivalent I could think of was Beckham leaving United. Obviously, Real Madrid is an academy player. Okay, Beckham's not a local Manchester boy, but he's a United fan and he's a local lad who came, not a local lad, but he came through the academy. Yeah. And there was a little bit of, there were a few rumblings when Beckham left for Madrid, but he's still seen as a United legend now. He certainly wouldn't get booed. He didn't get booed when he came back to Old Trafford.
He didn't. He go
roundly
massive,
his name sung. Yeah, so I don't know. It's an excuse to boo somebody now, isn't it? It's like the
it's all very odd.
Where the guy goes, fucking boo.
Yeah.
Liverpool fans will never be Everton fans at booing. That's one thing. Everton fans are
that's true.
Booers.
Well, they've had a lot of practice at it, Everton fans, over the years. It must be hard. They must be wishing to get. Unfortunately for them, they got bought out by a private equity company who, to be fair, the Friedkin family may do a good job there, but they're not going to chuck City levels of state wealth at it. So, how quickly City forgot their place in the world. Final word on Rooney. I mean, I think you're right about he's not that eloquent, right? But I think some of the criticism of him. Generally, I think it's probably kind of classist. What is it? He's actually got something interesting to say, and then we've got dozens and dozens of pundits, especially ex-Manchester United pundits, but generally, who say absolutely nothing of interest. at all, ever. And he does say something of interest. He's just not the most fluent with it. But there you go. All right. I don't know whether you caught Jason Wilcox's interview on the new official Manchester United podcast called Inside Carrington, because I think they record it from inside Carrington.
I didn't, but I can actually guess what he said and the manner in which he says it, because everything he says always seems to be the same sort of tread.
Yes, he's quite bland. I mean, I think some of what he said is probably better read, in quotes, to be honest, than listened to. It gave some insight, right? It's a 30,000 foot level. He didn't really dig into the day-to-day, but he talked about his portfolio, which is extensive. So football operations, logistics, medical, scouting, squad planning, loads, right? So it's a big job at a big club, and he's never done that before. So it is a definite step up and promotion. But he gave some insight into how they think about transfers, how they think about squad planning and contracts, which, I mean, might be the first time in like forever that United have actually thought about that. Clearly they didn't in the past, right? Phil Jones, he hasn't played for 3 years because he's got no knees left. Okay, 5-year contract, no problem.
Yeah, I think Jason Wilcox's credentials are sort of already being proven. And like you say, what he's responsible for, people sort of assume is just transfers and, him chatting to Amorim every now and then and being a bit of a conduit between Amorim and Big Jim. But yeah, look at what he did at City and Southampton here, with a remit with the academy, and he's only adding to that with his United job. So it's a bigger club and a bigger remit, like you say. I think that, the Ashworth departure created something for Wilcox that he probably wasn't expecting, and he's probably now doing 2 jobs in one, which is maybe that pressure will tell in the same way that the pressure of being the United manager tells on people. He obviously is slightly in the shadows as a sporting director, but Wilcox always speaks okay. I'm never thrilled by what he says. He always sounds like he knows what he's doing, which, like you say, is a refreshing departure from the days of old, where I remember United putting out to us when I was at the Manchester Evening News, United leaked, or just told us via press channels, the search for a sporting director had started. And 2 years later, they appointed one. And it was like, really? 2 years to get that job locked down? While, we were signing players and selling players and doing all the rest in that time. I mean, yeah, my pro-Solskjaer agenda only grows when I think that he was working under Ed Woodford and nobody else.
Absolutely. So, I mean, they have professionalized it. I mean, unbelievable that United were so late in doing this, but, a real sporting director. And Omar Barada, I mean, he was COO at Citigroup, and he does give that kind of vibe of operations, which will take some of the portfolio away from Wilcox or take some of the pressure off. And Ratcliffe is as heavily involved day to day as reports suggest, then he's more CEO, and you can kind of understand the split of roles there. At some point, Barada will have to step up, and I don't know, it doesn't give that vibe to me of charismatic CEO, but maybe he's good. Obviously, I have no insight. I've never worked with the man, but yeah, Wilcox talked about transfers, talked about working with Christopher Vale and Amorim. They're clearly the triumvirate who are driving transfers forward. Talked about the personalities you need as a Manchester United player to come. So had a lot to say about Cunha and Mbeumo, Lomans and Benjamin Šeško. He was very positive on all of them. On Lomans, he said that Tony Coton was pushing him a year before they bought him to get this guy, said he'd be a top keeper. On Šeško, he said that he hasn't had the headlines yet, which is true because some of the performances are a bit mixed, aren't they? But he's making the runs and they're really pleased with him. I think it's probably my analysis too. I think there's a lot more to come from Šeško. Whereas with Højlund, I was watching him going, does this guy want to be a forward or not? He's standing there like trying to have a cuddle with the centre-back, whereas Šeško is at least trying to get in the right spaces. The goals aren't coming yet. The first touch in the last game was a bit off, wasn't it? He seemed to miscontrol things, misplace a lot of passes. But anyway, Wilcox was quite, had a lot of praise for Šeško, I think. and then talked about the personality and Bumo and Cunha and their desire to come to United. He said lots of other big clubs were after them and they pushed them all aside because they only wanted to come to United. Maybe that's a bit of fan service, but it was good to hear.
Well, there's always a bit of that. There is always a bit of PR and propaganda. And obviously, Wilcox has a vested interest in these guys doing well because he had such a big hand in signing them. But if you look at his hit rate in two summers plus 1 January, where Dorgu was the signing, and I am sort of going off Patrick Dorgu a little bit as a player as his limitations become clear, but he was a low-risk signing on low wages and low transfer fee. So you can't really gripe with that. And other than that, it's Agate and Xerxes, but neither of them have completely flopped yet. I mean, they could potentially be sold on for a decent amount of money. It's clear that neither of them are in Amorim's first choice 11, first choice plans, but the rest of the signings under Ineos and with Wilcox hand on the tiller have been good, I think. So, yeah, that interplay between Šeško, Cunha and Mbeumo was always going to take time. It's only just November. How many games have they all started together? It's
not many.
Probably count it on one hand.
Yeah.
And I think the Brighton game was the best we saw of them as a trio. I think there's a lot of potential there. You don't sign those players and it does not work, with a good coach getting them into shape. So I just think it's, patience with Šeško. I don't get the criticism of him really because I think, he scored a couple of goals. He hasn't been a disaster. Gary Neville seems very, very keen to stick the knife in at any opportunity, which
odd.
I think we know where that's coming from. We know that's coming from a place of overcompensating from Neville and not wanting to be too kind on United. But in this case, Gary, it's a centre forward who's new to the Premier League who's scored a couple of poachers finishes, which is exactly what we want from him. So, no problems with Šeško or on the transfer policy, really. They're signing players up there. Exactly that age bracket that I was calling for them to sign, the sort of 23 to 27 bracket. That's what we need.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Well, Wilcox said that the last summer's transfer window was pretty chaotic and this one wasn't. And I think that shows the time they had to, because they had no time, right? Before that first transfer window really to sort things out. This time, they're going to have a full year when it comes to 26. The World Cup will get in the way a little bit, of course, but that's the same for everyone. But they're doing a lot of planning and thinking about the profiles of players. That comes from Rúben and Wilcox. Like, what do they need? And what age brackets and what cost? And I think that's exactly right. And they're thinking about it long term. And I would expect United's hit rate to be really good now. I mean, total agreement. The two that look a little bit off so far, Ugarte, who's sort of one-dimensional profile, is they probably paid just a little bit too much for him because of that one-dimensional nature, I think. But if they sold him on now to, say, a Spanish club at 30 million, they'd break even on PSR. So I think that's fine, right? Basically, Xerxes, they'd get their money back, so they might even make a PSR profit. And Dorgu, well, as you said, low cost, low risk. I'm a little bit disappointed he hasn't improved more. I liked what I saw in the summer, but because of the low intensity nature of the games, it was a little bit hard to tell. He looked good in the summer. He looked fit. I like his movement and physicality and pace, and he does get into good positions. And it's just that final quality which is missing there. And it's a little bit disappointing he hasn't improved. Really, at all. He's got 1 assist in 32 games. and that's it.
And he doesn't look like getting an assist or getting a goal. He doesn't have the composure in those areas, and maybe that is something that's very hard to teach. And no matter how much Rúben can coach the system to him, and I do think Dorgu is a good player for the system. He gets around the pitch and he positionally is quite disciplined. But it's those technical things and those sort of composure things where if your touch is slightly off, you won't get the shot away, you won't get the cross that you want. And, you only have to look at Bruno in terms of, producing in those areas to see what the standard is. So, yeah, Dorgu's got a long way to go. That left wing back position is probably one of two for me that Wilcox and Vivel will be looking at, that and the central midfield. I'd be surprised if we get high caliber players to fill those holes in January. It's more likely to be next summer, but we need to be pushing, or at least in the Europa League, pushing for the Champions League by that time.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, could they do business in January? Yeah, they could, but it might depend on outgoings, which brings us on to some rumours this week about Højlund and Rashford potentially doing deals early. Højlund, you could do it, but wouldn't Napoli negotiate that option or obligation, probably to bring it forward? Would we take 5 million euros less in order to do it in January? Funny, just as talk of that was happening and Højlund had a pretty bright start at Napoli, he stopped scoring goals. So he's now getting some criticism, but the Napoli have stopped scoring goals as well. So they've got a few things to think about. Kevin De Bruyne got injured. They'd already moved the system around to integrate De Bruyne. McTominay had been playing off the left, not his best position, clearly, although he can still make those sort of late box runs from that position. So they've got a few things to think about. Barcelona, I'd be absolutely shocked. Guillaume Balaguer, who's probably got the best inside track of anyone, Barcelona said they're delighted with him, and you should ignore all the stories that are suggesting they won't want to take him. But as ever with Barcelona, it's financial. That's the issue, and they're still not on a one-to-one. They have this system in La Liga where if you're under financial constraints, you can't necessarily spend all the money you get in, and they're on I think I'm right in saying they're on a 2-to-1, which is for any money they spend, they have to bring in €2. So every euro they spend, they have to bring in 2. So to take that option up, they've got to sell some players, I suspect. So I'd be shocked if it was January. They've got time. They don't have him on loan all season. Why do they need to do it right now? But, Rashford, he didn't score the other night, but he's got 13 goals and assists in 14 games now.
Yeah, he's done well.
He's playing.
Whenever I've seen him as well, yeah.
He has looked good. I've seen quite a few full Barcelona games now. And I don't know whether it's odd because he looks like a kind of flick kind of player. He does like those dynamic players in wide areas. He doesn't look like a Barcelona player, right? He's not playing short, intricate one-touch passes. He is the explosive part of the end of the move, and he's got some brilliant individual goals as well. So it's funny because he looks good. He's playing better than he has for 2 years. You can call it environment, manager, whatever, fresh start, away from the entourage. I don't know what it is. Maybe fitness. Maybe he's just decided it's his last chance to be at a top club. All those things could be true at once, of course, but he's playing very well. The system integration is kind of interesting one. So we'll watch this space. But whatever happens, if he keeps playing like this all season, he'll get moved somewhere. Well,
he's not coming back to United, that's for sure.
He's not coming back to United, no. No, even
Sadly,
if the manager
I do find
changed.
that. Yeah, I do find that sad. I am happy to see him do well, and I'm happy to see him do well, and the narrative sort of prove accurate. Because when he was at Villa, and obviously maybe a bit closer to home, and the media glare was probably that much louder in terms of what we heard as Premier League fans and United fans. I just thought it was a false narrative on Rashford. They were making out that he was playing really well, when I think he scored like 2 or 3 goals in 15 games, and most of them were in the FA Cup against Preston. So maybe it's incomparable, La Liga to the Premier League. And I think that a proper break away into a different country environment has obviously been good for him. And he's had his family over there as well. So all power to Marcus Rashford. He's a good footballer. And, one of the sort of few really elite players that Carrington has produced in the last, decade? So we want to see him do well, surely.
Yeah, he got a lot of criticism online for the interview where he was asked about stability. And he sort of said, yes, he did the footballer's thing of repeating the question back to the interviewer. And I saw a lot of criticism of that. Well, he's not taking responsibility. He just repeat the question back. Come on. God, I have so little patience for the infantile nature of social media. I shouldn't be on there at all. But I think that's it's a point. How do you expect to develop players? I think the better way of analyzing it is that raw talent that Rashford had when he was 15, 16. I don't think anyone was really looking at him and going, hey, he could be, world class, an elite player. By the time he'd had a couple of years at United, we were like, okay, if he gets to be consistent, he really could be an elite player. And then, of course, he had a couple of really big seasons amid injuries and stuff like that. But if he had had consistency of manager and coaching, some of the raw nature of his game would have been ironed out, and he didn't, right? And so you can blame Rashford for the things he got wrong, and you can also blame United for the things that we as a club have got wrong. And it's not just him. We haven't maximised a lot of talent. And you can have a brilliant academy, and we didn't for a long time because they kind of ignored it. But if you don't have the right environment, it's not going to work, right? And right now, we're seeing the benefits in the academy at age group level of the reinvestment a few years ago and the refocus and Nick Cox's brilliant work. Amazing that we let him go, by the way. Everyone in football says he's a brilliant football mind, and couldn't find a bigger portfolio for him. Come on. But anyway, we're going to see the benefit of that, but you still need stability in the first team to bring players through, right? I mean, Shea Lacey the other night, what a talent this kid is. And there's so few that you're like, oh yeah, he really should make it. Unbelievable talent if he can stop getting injured. That's the question. And you can give him
There's
a pathway.
Loads at the moment, though.
Loads. There's a dozen
really
players
exciting.
you could point to. Yeah.
Yeah, so exciting. And Jim Thwaites is another one.
Oh my God.
Little clips of him. And this lad is balletic.
Four goals.
The ball. Yeah, his passing range, the way he moves with the ball. Yeah. And Gabriel Bianchieri as well. Scores absolutely hatfuls.
Yeah.
Yeah. JJ Gabriel. We could go up.
Gabriel's ridiculous as well. Ridiculous amount of talent, this kid. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to get too hyped up because unbelievable talent. That shouldn't go away. But, everything could happen in the next 4 years. His body could change. He might have to relearn the skills. He can get injured. He's growing. And it's so hard to get from that point. I think I mentioned it before. Arsene Wenger is technical director at UEFA at the moment, or FIFA, one of the two. One of the mafioso sporting bodies, anyway, said that 72% of players at elite level academies never play a professional game. The attrition rate is unbelievably high. Right, so I used to work in venture capital, and we'd have this funnel. Right, you go see all these startups. And the investment rate to startup touch point rate would be about 1,000 to 1, right? Something like that. And it's like that in football as well. All these kids coming into the academy system, and the attrition rate at each level is really high. But then for less than 30% to make it to professional level, let alone elite level, you're probably tens of thousands to 1. To make it there is they have to make incredible sacrifices. They have to have everything right: mentality, fitness, environment, injuries, all of it.
I better lower my hopes for my 11-month-old son making it to.
You need to get him kicking the ball right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he can hold the ball, and he can't quite walk yet. So kicking the ball is going to be quite tough. But Project Mbappe, I've tried to call it, but I think my wife is
right?
more keen for him to go into engineering or something stable,
Yeah, not computer engineering, because that's all been done by AI now. You've got no chance, kids, if you're doing. You can't get a job now coming out of computer science. His courses. Sorry.
I just find. Sorry, I was going to go on a complete tangent about how I find people talking about AI to be really boring. You end up talking to people at weddings who are telling me that my job in the media is going to be taken by AI. It's like, all right, I really respect you. Can we just have a beer and talk about the happy couple? Or no, your job's doomed. No one reads newspapers anymore. Okay, cheers.
Yeah, actually, since we're making it, I mean, it's sort of relevant. I mean, you write Substack, you're in the media. I write my Substack as well. I think that amongst all the AI slop that's out there, same in podcasting too, by the way, because there's some really good synthetic voices aren't quite ready yet, but I've seen enough demos that it's getting really good, really fast. Go play with 11 Labs, for example. Right, you can do some really good stuff there. Now. Yeah, but the interplay and the personality isn't quite there yet. So does the human authentic stuff still matter, right? Whether it's writing, whether it's podcasting, or even video punditry, the synthetic avatars getting, I don't even play with VO3. It's really good. Yeah, it's really, really good. Right? Yeah. So there you go. I mean,
I think I'm head in the sand, Ed. I'm Nigel Pearson, ostrich with his head in the sand, just waiting for all this to blow over, and it'll all leave me behind, like everything leaves everyone behind. Anyway, what about Spurs this weekend?
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Yeah, listen about Spurs, yeah. Just about on the eve of Rúben Amorim's first anniversary. Well, he was appointed on the 1st November. He took training for the first time on the 11th of November after Sporting had a cup game or something they wanted him to play in. And his first actual game was on the 24th. So pick the anniversary that you like, I guess.
Yeah.
But more important is a game this weekend. We had a win against Chelsea, then a heavy defeat to City, 3 wins on the bounce, and then a draw against Forest, in which we were very good in the first half and not very good in the second, I think. And it could have gone all pear-shaped, but they scored a brilliant goal. Ahmad scored a brilliant goal, which was not planned as such, but you could see Bruno beforehand pointing out where he needed to stand for the second ball. So, not accidental either. And when you've got to play with that much skill and technique as Ahmad has, yeah. Anyway, I think a year ago, United probably would have caved. And they didn't. So there's some pluses there. How are you feeling going into the Spurs game?
This is a really good test, a very well-timed test for this bunch of players to go to a ground where United have an appalling record for a start since the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was built. We've got an
100th away game against Spurs. This is 100th away game against Spurs. Yeah, we have a losing record against them. So it's not just appalling at the new stadium or in modern times. It's just appalling generally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the recent record against Spurs, I'm looking at now, the last 4 games have been lost. We haven't won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium since October 2021, which was, I think, that game under Oli when we scored that nice goal when Cavani went through headed goal, I think, diving header. Really good performance that. Yeah. But was there a crowd? There was a crowd. But we had another win there where there wasn't a crowd. So we have not done well there. And I haven't been there, but people say that it is quite an intimidating atmosphere. I know we'll get lots of comments, lads. It's Tottenham.
Spurs fan.
Yeah, I know. But I think the stadium is meant to be quite loud. And United away from home for a good number of years now, probably since Ten Hag, have been really poor and have wilted. And the mentality has just not been there when moments of adversity happen. And that was why, for me, the Forest result was quite pleasing, because as soon as I saw, I was out and I didn't have any signal. Last time I checked my phone, we were winning 1-0 at half time. Thought brilliant. Then I went out and did something, and I checked my phone 10 minutes later and we were 2-1 down. And it was like, I know where this is going to go. And Amorim said it, didn't he? He said, last season we would have lost that. So for me, that Forest, just to recover and get something from that game was a win, was a big plus. But I think this is the test that is a step up from that, because I think that while Spurs are in a sort of strange place under Frank, where there are a few cracks that are starting to show. You had the Van de Ven and Spence snubbing of him on the sideline, and they were very, very poor against Chelsea, I thought. I still think they have good players, and we don't beat good teams away from home very often. Yeah. So this is it. I think this is, if United win that, there's a run of fixtures ahead which are very, very winnable, and that really can be built a bit of momentum ahead of steam.
Yeah, all very true, I think, yeah. Bad record generally under Amorim away from home. Bad record recently. We're just not the same side. We're much stronger at Old Trafford. It's a really big test. Obviously, we won at Liverpool. That's very specific tactical approach for that game that worked. It's hard to draw much out of that in a bigger picture as a result. Frank's Spurs are odd, right? Because I think he's a good coach, and he's a bit of a dick, isn't he? I mean, but I like that in coaches, to be honest. The thing he has to do is there's an expectation of Spurs of playing good football, good attacking football, and winning. And he's a manager that has excelled in playing this kind of slightly direct style in a bit of a low block, right? And I think he's trying to work out what kind of Spurs is he going to get. Chelsea, though, are just dreadful. 0.05 XG from one shot. That was it.
I knew they did nothing. I didn't quite know they did that level of nothing. It is a funny job, though, the Spurs job, because I just don't know what Spurs fans want. Do they want free-flowing, attacking, gung-ho, first season Ange Postecoglou football? Or do they want to win? Do they want Mourinho, Conte? Yeah. And Frank is seemingly a hybrid between those two, because he does have I'd say a bit of a more malleable hybrid style. Yeah, he's not a sort of he's not a philosopher in the way that Postecoglou is. But yeah, I don't know where they're going with this appointment. I think that the sort of limited success of Keith Andrews at Brentford at the moment isn't painting Thomas Frank in a very good light, because we're sort of seeing that Brentford will survive no matter who the manager is. Brentford have a model, and that model is built around getting players from Scandinavia, getting players who are able to be sold for a higher value and to succeed on the pitch via set pieces and things like that. So that isn't very Spursy, and that isn't maybe painting Thomas Frank in the best of lights. A roundabout way of me saying Thomas Frank is a 6 out of 10 manager, and Tottenham are a 6 out of 10 team.
Should they 6 out of 10 club, some would say.
Yeah.
Put them all together, and it should be in a great place. Yeah, there's a few clubs that have expectations bigger than their historical station. I mean, Spurs, obviously, they have won things over the years, but they haven't won the league title since 61? West Ham are a bit like this. They're even more like this. They're like, we're a big side. No, you're not. Never been a big side. What are you talking about?
The West Ham way, the Spurs way. What are these sort of undeterminate things?
Yeah. The Spurs way is trekking 15 miles up Seven Sisters Road to get to the stadium from the nearest tube station.
Yeah. I mean, we could just have this conversation without talking about the Europa League final as well. I was wondering when we were going to mention it.
You had to bring that up.
Not talk about it? Yeah, sorry.
It still rankles. It still rankles because it was so unbelievably awful against a crap side. And, I was writing my 1 year of Rúben Amorim piece on Substack, and I couldn't help but think about it, because it's the one that, amidst all the defeats, and there have been a lot of them, and a lot of them been really crap, and he was inflexible for so very bloody long that it drove me mad, and we talked about it plenty of times, like how you want him to succeed, and he's an affable guy, but there's just nothing to hold on to. There is now, right? Because he's finally changed things, and they are quite significant changes, I think, in order to get results. It's quite pragmatic, he's done. But that Spurs game, where he didn't change anything, and we were so awful. And Ange, like in his last game as Spurs manager, instead of playing this ridiculous high line and mega attacking football and blowing it like he'd been doing all season, it was like, okay, we're just going to sit back because we know United won't create anything.
Yeah,
it rankles so much. It's just disgusting. And lads, it's Spurs.
It's a very different type of game, I think. It's a game that could really, anything could happen. I could see us dominating. I can see us being on the back foot and maybe playing it a bit more like we did at Anfield and sitting back and countering. I hope to see us come out and play a little bit more than that. And the role of the 210s in maybe giving what I think is quite a brittle Spurs defence a tough time. I really rate Van der Ven. Obviously, that goal that he scored in midweek was insane. But he was against...
Yeah, well, maybe don't just let him run in a straight line for 70 yards.
Well, we did that again last season at Old Trafford. We let him run. And when they beat us 3-0, one of the worst performances of the Ten Hag era. So don't let him do that, lads. I think he's probably their best player, actually. So,
well, you're their top scorer.
Keep the front line, which I really do think fastest to deceive and doesn't have a focal point, which is quite key. And I think that'll probably lend itself to our wide centre-backs being able to jump up without being sort of overburdened. So I think the tactical battle in that area of the pitch will be one that could favour us, I think. And I think our defence we've conceded a couple in our last couple of games, but I do think it is coming together a little bit.
Yes, sloppy individual goals, I thought. I think overall the defensive system, the reason why they went out and bought 3 forwards was because they were pretty happy with the amount of goals they conceded last season, generally speaking. I think we conceded about the same amount of goals as Villa, who finished 5th or 6th or whatever it was. So, so a few sloppy goals. I think systemically, actually, the defence is sort of working. What isn't really working, as you've mentioned, is the wing backs. I mean, Ahmad looks right there when he's played. He hasn't played every game. And I do like, if you're going to play this system, if you don't want it to look like a flat back 5, you have to have attacking players in there. Diogo Dalot put in one of the he's a talk about 6 out of 10s. He's a hardcore, aggressively 6 out of 10 player, isn't he? Both in talent and performances, but he put a 3 out of 10 performance in at the weekend. So bad.
I think 6 out of 10 is a little bit generous sometimes on Diogo Dalot. I know he has the effort. And I think
he does.
Of the current options, he probably has to start, but that says a lot about where Dorgu is at and where are the wing back options, which are really negligible. The problem I have is when Ahmad and Mbeumo go to the African Cup of Nations, we're in trouble. I was trying to think yesterday, just daydreaming, thinking of what the possible right-sided combination would be. And it probably involves pushing Bruno up to the right 10 and having Diogo Dalot playing at right back and then Dorgu on the left. But it isn't the most sort of exciting of prospects, that losing that partnership between Mbeumo and Ahmad, which has been the most potent part of the pitch this season. That's going to be a problem. And Amorim has accepted that himself, hasn't he?
He has. He said we're going to struggle a little bit, which I don't know is the best signalling, honestly. Yeah, I don't know what the combinations are there. I mean, you'd be tempted to move Bruno forward, of course, because at least you then get the output still. You won't get the direct running of Mbeumo, but you get the output. Moving closer to goal. But then again, if you look at all of Bruno's numbers, attacking numbers, him and Elliot Anderson are the 2 best central midfielders in the Premier League. And they're miles away from anyone else. Miles away. Bruno is world-class and elite, and the discourse around him, online, is just disgusting. Like, the idea that you'd criticize the elite levels of performances because sometimes he gives the ball away. By the way, he's instructed to get it forward. 1 touch, 2 touch, forward. Amorim said it himself, right? He finally confirmed what we all knew. That is the goal. High risk, high reward from that area. Sorry, I'm going to moan about the online.
Ed's back on his Bruno-related soapbox, everyone.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's just fucking mad. This is our only world-class player for the last 5 years, basically. Flashes of Rashford, but clearly not the consistency. And Bruno's completely delivered all of the time. But anyway, back to the Africa Cup of Nations. Yeah, that's probably the best thing, and move Menu into midfield. Amorim's been incredibly reluctant to do that for the profile of player and all of that. So I would expect actually something different to happen, which is for Mount to come into that role and Bruno to stay in his same place, but that will obviously cut down United's output significantly.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And I think Mount is a shout to maybe start this Saturday as well. I don't think it will happen. I think it will be Mbeumo and Cunha in those positions. It could be Mount and then pushing one of them up to the 9 and dropping Šeško. But I don't know what that does for Šeško's confidence and the whole narrative that we've talked about around that is an interesting one. Otherwise, I can't see the team changing at all from Forest. I think the back five and Lomans is pretty set now. What would you do?
Yeah, I think the back five is set. I mean, I would like to see him drop Dalot. It sounds like an agenda. It's not really. I'd just rather take a risk against Spurs, who are likely to play with a fairly low block. I mean, it's kind of mid-block, isn't it? They're not ultra defensive, but I don't think they commit loads of players forward. And as you said, they don't. Without Solanke, who's never fit, they don't have a focal point to that attack. They have some talented players in wide areas, but they'd even push Bergvall into sort of the wide left. It's not his role at all. Talented player, by the way. One that United looked at quite a lot when he was a youth player. So I would be thinking about taking a risk. The interesting thing that happened in the change from the Liverpool game to the Forest game, for example, was the number of long balls. So we were direct nearly 40% of the time against Liverpool. Against Forest, it was less than 15%. So the way that we tried to build up was completely different. That, again, shows more flexibility than there has been in the past under Amorim. The interesting thing is if Spurs are going to be a little more compact and defensive, what does the possession number look like? It's 54% or something against Forest. Our record I think it's like 0.8 points per game when we have more than 50% possession, and like 1.9 when we have less than 50% possession under Amorim. And it's an incredible dichotomy between like when we don't have the ball and when we have the ball. Maybe is it still a hangover from Ten Hag transitional football? Is this actually?
It's not something we've
done
well in years. It's not something I can't think of a time really since Van Gaal where we have turned sort of possession into dominance. And possession is obviously outmoded at the moment, and everyone's going for long balls, set pieces, and countering. And we're sort of in post-Pepism in football at the moment now. So I'm not too fussed about that. I think that the 3-4-3 lends itself to being better without the ball than with it. It just gives you one less player in attack, really. That is by design, that's what it does. So you don't have a third midfielder to work it around teams with. So that will probably keep happening. It's just finding a way against those middle ranks to pick up points. So yeah, the Forest game was half of that. There was a really good spell in the first half where it all looked like it was clicking into place, and then there were the other spells where it looked a bit like last year. So that's still on Amorim's sort of to-do list for me to improve that kind of performance against the mid-ranks, especially away from home. This Spurs game, I don't know whether it is going to be one of those mid-rank games or whether it's going to be more like the Anfield test. That sort of depends how well Spurs play and how quick they come out the blocks, I guess. Yeah,
well, they had a very good result midweek. Spurs, against Copenhagen, but nonetheless, 4-0 win is going to give anyone some confidence. Frank still finding his feet, I feel. I'm not sure that we really know exactly what we're getting. They had a good start to the season, which is why they've got quite a few points, but the performances recently have been pretty bad. The balance doesn't quite look right, does it? I think they look more balanced with Udogie at left back rather than Jed Spence, who's been there recently. So, who are they going to play in those areas? Van de Ven, as you said, I think he's their top scorer this season with 6 goals. I think own goals is second. So they're like mad like that. I may be wrong about that.
Well, they don't have a goal scorer, do they?
They don't have a goal scorer, no. Kudus I really liked as a player. I liked him as a player before he went to West Ham. He performed well there. I don't know that they found the right role for him quite yet at Spurs, so we'll see. I feel like his performance levels may have dropped a little bit, but a very good player. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't quite look balanced. And that is a part of going from manager to manager and pole to pole. And, you end up with these kind of weird United have had it. Like if you have completely different philosophies, manager to manager, as you're constructing a squad, either you're prepared to spend £500 million to build a new squad, which is basically what United are going to have to commit to Amorim, over the piece, not all in one go, or you're going to end up with these weird Frankenstein squads that are parts of one manager and parts of another, and they just don't all fit together. And this is like not surprising, I think, in a sense, that there's been leadership changes at Spurs because they operated for so long without a sporting director, really, right? And same as United, and you get really bad decision-making as a result.
Yeah, for sure. I think two teams literally in a very similar place in the table on the same points. I think a couple of goals in goal difference separating United and Spurs. Two teams in a similar stage of their development. Literally, I mean, look at last season, look at the Europa League runs.
Yeah.
I don't like putting us on the same level as Spurs, but it's definitely where we're at the moment. And one of those teams that will definitely be competing with for a European spot this season. So in the sort of context of that, it is a really important game. You look at the table at the minute between City in second on 19 points, and then we're in 8th, 2 points behind. So there's a whole cohort of teams there that are competing for the same spots for sure.
Yeah, and it may stratify. We're less than a third of the way into the season, just over a quarter, in fact. So it may stratify more, and maybe it's just going to be super, super close because there's a lot of teams that are a lot of flawed teams at a similar level this season, which means every point does really count. Also, it says to me that the opportunity is there, and to round this off with a kind of transfer thought that the rational decision, like over the many years, you're like, well, it doesn't make much sense spending money in January because players aren't available and they don't, clubs don't want to let them go in the middle of the season. And that's all very true. But the rational thought here, if you're chasing at least a Europa League space, might be to go, well, where are the weaknesses in the squad right now? Maybe we should spend some money there. And that might be like pay it forward or bring it forward a little bit and spend the next summer's money. Now, of course, they probably want to spend a huge amount of money on one of Wharton, Anderson, Baleba, maybe another one, maybe two of them in midfield. So you're probably unlikely to extract any of those players in January, or maybe at all. It really depends on where United finish this season. But you'd be looking at wing back and central midfield as areas of weakness. Like, and what can you do about that?
Well, it'd be interesting to see how, if at all, United promote from within, and whether Diego Leon never gets a chance. Harry Amas is on loan at Sheffield Wednesday.
Doing very well, apparently.
We can't forget about him. Yeah, and he's a talented lad and was always sort of tipped for the first team. So I hope that we make the right decisions in those positions, but I still need more evidence from Chase and Wilcox and Ineos that they will make it the right calls. So, yeah. The thing about 3-4-3 is that the only specialist positions are those wing backs. And it's been quite telling that the only specialist signing that we've made for those positions is the lowest risk and lowest cost one in Dorgu. So that suggests that Amorim, although he has been given time and patience, and we're a fan of such an approach, they haven't really put the house on him. It's obviously the right thing to do. We've complained in the past about them putting the house on one particular manager and then sacking them and going to another approach, and you get the Frankenstein squad, like you're saying. So that's just the test of the loyalty of Amorim and the patience they have with him, whether a big bespoke signing in one of his specialist positions does happen.
We will find out in a couple of months' time.
Can't wait for January already. Never mind the games, eh?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, listeners. You can find our extra show. We're going to do a piece on a year of Amorim on patreon.com/NQATpod. I'm on Substack, nqatpod.substack.com. Do a couple of pieces a week. Dominic, I don't think I've seen you ping up there recently. Have you written anything recently?
I wrote something about us playing well, which a few people saw. That was a couple of weeks ago, though. Yeah, so I'll probably write something after the Spurs game, depending on my mood. And my mood is often dictated by the United result. So, yeah, watch that space.
Yeah. Well, it's an early kickoff, so if we lose, it'll ruin our entire weekend.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, United, for doing that to us. All right. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Dominic. We'll see you next time.